June 10th, we released this video. We also had a podcast about it, and it's the Nissan Z, 10 things that Nissan must get right. And I think we're going to touch on some of those things today again, because we're still waiting to see what those packages are. So, and we'll get into that. Now, my feeling on it was more of a, for the Z fans, I felt it was more of a rekindle that spirit, kind of a pep rally thing. We're coming with it, guys. We need your help and your support. And it goes back to what you said a couple weeks ago. Are we just like living in a world of live surveys? Is that what's happening?
So they were very careful to say this was close to a production model.
Yes.
And let me see if I can find. I threw that in the notes, and I've got a different window open. But they did make it a point to say it's close to a production model.
And while you're looking, let me just say this for you guys. Now, and Keith and I will touch on this. It's an opinion. It's one of our items that we think that Nissan's got to get done. But we know that in production, in the auto manufacturing world, from a production standpoint, when they start engineering and developing these things, it's usually going to take about 4 years from that design to full production. It's on the lot.
Yeah, so they did drive an actual vehicle onto the stage, which is further than, for example, the Cadillac Lyriq or the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, both of which we've recently talked about. So they've got a working prototype.
Right, and Alfonso and Tamura both said that this prototype that you see here is as close to the final production vehicle as it gets. They did say that. I don't know if you recall that.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, which is very nice. I like it, and I hope that everybody out there has had an opportunity to see this thing. And the color was beautiful. I love that yellow.
Yeah. So they spent almost the entire time talking about design. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was all from how it looks. Okay. So they didn't get into any performance specs at all. We got maybe a 15-second view of the interior, and there was working tech inside of it. We got to see that it's an all-digital...
Looked digital to me, yes.
Yeah, instrument cluster.
Right. Still had the three
cutouts on the dash.
3 cutouts on the dash.
We didn't see them from the passenger angle because they're aimed at the driver, but I would assume those are going to be analog dials. I don't see how they would make those digital. Some
of the video... But they were rendering videos. They were not. There's CGI. There was not I still think that there should be some analog in there if not. But and so from the performance standpoint, like you said, Keith, I agree with that. It didn't really reveal a lot. But here's what we do know is that definitely there's going to be a 6-speed manual transmission.
Yep.
That is a definite. My suspicion on that is it's going to be. That'll be on the top end 400 horsepower Z, that's what we're hoping. We don't know what they're going to call it yet again, and we'll get into that a little bit. And we also know that based on what was driven out, that this thing had pretty nice braking system on it. The rotors were huge.
Oh, huge, yeah.
They've got 6 piston calipers on the front, 4 piston calipers on the rear. So we know that this thing is going to be built. The one thing that I thought was really cool, man, did you see the custom tires on that thing?
Yeah, I actually looked at who made them because you could tell in one of the shots that it was a...
Dunlop.
Yes.
Dunlop, right?
And I'm wondering if they're actually going to... If those were a one-off. Or
I think that they're going to... No, I think that they're going to be custom tires made available specifically for this.
That's smart.
Sure it is. Well, what you also do is you can... these vehicles, as you well know, suspensions are tuned. They are designed to work on tires and setups that were factory driven.
Yeah, my last Z had different size tires in the front versus the rear, and you could not rotate.
It makes complete sense that they would do this. Plus, it keeps their customer coming back to really encourage that customer.
It's a captive audience.
It's an experience. It's a driving experience, and you can't get the full experience unless you dress it.
But they moved. I did notice that when one of the first things that jumped out to me when I was looking at it is how far back that back wheel is. They moved it way back on the vehicle, and I'm hopeful that there's some performance reasons for that. So, do we want to get into kind of things that they need to do? This is something that we have done on this show very well in the past when we've talked about vehicles like the Bronco, things they need to get right. And they usually turn into almost a prediction of kind of, it's either going to play out this way and we told you it would, or wow, they missed the mark and they should have done it. Do you want to get into a little bit of that, or do you have another angle you want to take? Okay, so
no, that's fine. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So, my initial, beyond what we've already talked about, you're not going to win everyone on appearances. Now, they spent a lot of time yesterday talking about how beautiful this car is and how it's all heritage. It's heritage. They're drawing from the history of the Z and the power of Z, and there's Z in everything we do. And kind of that little bit, I went, really? Because there's really not. I mean, I look at a lot of the products Nissan throws out lately, and I ain't seeing Z in any of them. But I get it. You're trying to make a point that this car kind of puts you on the map, and it's kind of one of your flagship vehicles, and and all that. So, I am one that I'm a little indifferent on the appearance of this vehicle. I'm gonna be leaning more towards performance when I make my decision. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. But I do believe that there's going to be that certain crowd out there, fans of it, that are going to want to have that. Looks are important to them as well.
I agree.
And I find what they've done to be a little bit. It's not as modern as one would think that this thing was going to be.
So, I think that's a very good point, and you and Sideshot are in agreement on that to some extent, because the people that they are marketing to with appearances are the existing Z fans, whether or not they're a current owner or previous owner, or they have always loved the car. This and all the retro kind of callbacks to the 300 on the back end.
Yep.
Some of the front end designs.
I don't like the grill.
Yeah, I don't care for it either. But
it's just squared off.
They're trying to do sort of this hybrid of old and new together, and they're putting a heavy weight on the history and the heritage again, right? So, again, the people that are going to be drawn to the appearance of this vehicle, they're existing Z fans. I don't think that's enough, Jay. I don't think it's enough to just win those people over. You've got to have a new audience.
Well, I think we're going to see with that, there's, again, not everybody's going to be able to afford, and we'll get into some of the price levels that we think that where they should be. Not everybody's going to be able to afford that 400Z, if that is in fact what they do call it. Right now, again, we still have no idea what they're going to call this thing. Right now, we just know they're stuck on Proto Z. But, and again, real quick, 172.5 inches, 5.5 inches longer than the 370Z. So that's my bad on the feet. I
forgive you. This is one time. You got the month is mostly over, so that's your one flub for the.
Yeah. So from the design brief that we saw, they kept touting that it was modern yet throwback.
Yeah, and
that's what you have.
Here's the risk with that. Okay, to your point about the rectangle.
Yeah,
you got to draw in a new crowd.
Yes.
You're going to lose some of the older crowd. You've got to bring in the churn rate. You've got to bring in some of the new crowd. So from a 10-year-old's perspective, I'm going to read you. Okay, you two are in agreement. I'm really disappointed in that front end. It's like they slapped a rectangle on it.
Yeah, because some of the other renderings, Keith, that we've seen, and you can go and take a look at some of those pictures, guys.
They're less sterile.
They're less, exactly. You've got more of it looks good. It looks attractive on the front end. This is kind of a weird thing, but maybe that's what they were trying to do, because I kept hearing them, say that it's an anti-wedge character lines on it. That sort of
that's
stuff.
all great. Again, I'm watching some supermodel photographer tell me things that I don't.
And that's exactly what you took from that as well, is the fact that he was speaking more to the look of it. Rather than the performance
if you're speaking to design fans, that's great. So the other thing that SideShot said was that they just repackaged some old stuff for the new model, which is sometimes cool, but this is not. So he's pretty disappointed. Now, he may be in the minority, but I doubt it. I think if you're going for the younger crowd, you got to win them on this. And, they admitted during this presentation that the U.S. market accounts for almost 70% of the sales of this particular Z, of the Z line. So that may be their first kind of loss right there, is just that they didn't design it right to appeal to the right crowd.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some key points that they have to get right. Because you just hit on a big one, and I don't want to go too far past that before we make sure. Okay, so, and I just made note of these, but I'm sure you've got some stuff too. This car has to go fast, okay? 0 to 60 matters. It's the first time that I've ever said that about a Z car. And the reason that I have changed my stance on that is because now we have electric in the game. And a Model 3 will go up there for potentially like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 less. And if it whoops that Z, then they're losing sales to a Model 3, okay?
Right.
This thing has to compete not just with Corvettes and Mustangs. That has to be a given. It has to go beat them around the track without even trying. Now you got to now compete with Corvettes and Jaguar F-Types, and you have to. You have to. The GTR is $130,000 realistically to take home. Right.
And the only way that this vehicle, even the top of the line, it's got to be into that 45 to 55, maybe 60 range. To make it affordable.
And see, they know what it's going to be capable of. They know what it's going to be capable of. When Elon Musk goes out there and he talks about a Model Y coming out or a Model 3 coming out, he goes, we think it's going to do 0 to 60 in roughly about this. It makes me nervous that they're not talking about the performance at all. Now, that's okay for a Bronco. It's okay to come out there and not talk about those kind of performance specs on an off-road vehicle.
This is a performance vehicle, and you've got to drop that.
Yep.
You need to drop that information. But, they've got the tools in the shed. They have the tools in the shed, and we know that, like I said, with the VR30, that thing, in the Q50 and the Q60, I should say, 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, and the top speed, I think it's 155 miles an hour is what they said on this thing. So I think you're going to have to go one up over that, man. You got to. You've got to figure out a way to get beyond that to compete with your Corvette and the Jag, like you just said.
And so, I'm hopeful when I look at the back end of this car. It looks like they're planning that. We'll see. You look at the big brakes and the rotors that you talked about. I'm going to do a little bit of a reversal on what I said on our Z podcast that we did a few months back. And I'm going to explain this, but this is the first time that I feel like if they're going to roll this thing out and it's not just going to be the hands down winner in those categories of performance, then you better load it up with tech.
Oh, absolutely.
Because and at which point I will cease to become a fan, because I care more about the performance of this car than I do about what tech it has in it. But if you can't deliver on performance in the vehicle, you're done unless you put a whole bunch of tech in it.
One of my things that I wanted to say, and we're talking about points that we want to make here now. You said you had 5 things, and I put a few things. First and foremost, for me, they need to get to the market fast with this thing. Okay, they just talked about it. They just had a press release about it. They need to get this thing out, and I would hope for a summer of 2021. But based on normal production times, it looks like 2022. That's just that's reality,
here is
guys.
What I wrote down on that, because once again, no shocker here. We're in agreement on this. I said, you got to get it out quick, because they clearly said. You remember they said these words in quotes. It is not a concept vehicle.
Right.
You remember hearing that? Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if it's not a concept, you are now trading current model sales for what you just rolled out on stage last night. And what I mean by that is, I'm potentially looking at buying one of these Z cars. Okay. I'm not going to buy a 370 current model now that I saw this thing roll out last night. That's, quote, not a concept vehicle. Okay.
Right.
So if you don't have it out next year, you've just shot yourself in the foot with Z-Car sales for the next calendar year. You have got to get this sucker out in the next. It's got to be for sale within 6 months.
Yep, exactly. I agree. And one advantage that Nissan has with this is that we know we're pretty certain. I'm going to go 99.9% certain that this thing is going to be a full-on Japanese production vehicle.
Oh, there is clearly a battle going on right now within Nissan of which version of Nissan is going to run Nissan, and this is clearly a Japanese-built product designed in Japan, produced in Japan. And if they want this to carry that company through to their next chapter, how many other vehicles are going to be Japanese-based production? They've cut production heavily, across the boards in Nissan. And you know what? If it's a good quality product, I'm fine with it being made in Japan. I care more about the quality of the vehicle than where it's made. And I know, oh boy, now I just got in trouble with all the union types, but I'm a car fan first, right?
Well, yeah, and I agree with that. But the other, what you have here is the opportunity for them. For all we know, they may already be in production, and we're just not aware.
And that would be an awesome, close to the vest play.
Absolutely, I don't disagree with that. I think they have to get this thing out to market as quickly as they possibly can. But they can't compromise this thing, man.
Okay, so that. Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors.
It has to be solid. It has to be
solid. And you cannot look at your competition. You cannot look at the Super. You can't look at the BRZ. Don't worry about those guys, man. Put your game on the road, man.
They have been plagued so much lately with quality issues, and that could be because of the leadership changes and all that. It's just been a black eye for them, and so if you're going to truly turn the page into a new chapter, if this thing rolls out and with 6 months the headlines are a lot of quality issues with it and recalls and stuff breaking down, oh boy, that's
it's going to be a problem.
And they've had over 10 years. 2008 was when the 370 premiered.
That's right.
So they've had over 10 years to get this thing right.
Right. Well,
12
again,
years plus.
Yes, that is Plus, that is why I suspect that this is definitely going to be that VR30D. They're not going to reinvent the wheel here because that engine platform is tried and true. It's ready to go. They know it performs well.
I'm going to beat up on one more thing that we just lightly touched on, which was this internal battle going on within Nissan. I don't really know what their marketing plan is. I don't really know. I'm not really compelled to. It's not doing much for me. I'm a little confused by it.
Right.
And if I'm just Joe consumer that might be looking to buy a Z car, I'm not sure that they're reaching that guy that isn't an existing or lady or whoever that isn't already an existing Z fan. Let me give you an example of what I mean here in terms of marketing. I'm a former Z owner. We've podcasted on it. We have a media channel. We are members of the media. The National Z Lovers Rally happened last night in my backyard.
ZCON.
And I had no idea.
Right.
And I live here.
Adam Carolla was in town.
What are they doing?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. I said the same thing. It was just I left kind of feeling empty. I mean, I have
and it looked like there was about 100 people at that thing too.
Yeah, it wasn't like packed out.
Yeah,
but, they flew Adam
100
in
cars.
Probably.
Oh yeah, they hired him for he was there
a day and he's gone.
Yeah.
But it's just they've got it. I think that this is their flagship. Yes, they need to cater to those existing, it's kind of similar to what Corvette, GM did with Corvette.
Correct. That's a very good point. That they are moving to the mid-engine, maybe rubbing the old timers a little bit, but they don't care because they realize that those people aren't going to buy cars for the next 30 years.
Right. So you got to think that way, and I think that's how they have to do it. I think what we're going to see is an expanded model range with this thing where you're going to have, and I know you cringe when I said EV, but I do think that with their EV technology that there's potential that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a base model that could have a 2-liter twin turbo in it. But I'm just saying, man. Okay, but then you're going to get into your maybe your a 300 version of it, and then the top end 400.
Well, if we're talking twin turbo, they at least recognize that it's got to haul ass. And if you put an EV in there and it hauls ass, times and then some. Okay, it's fine, because it's not like it's not like EV is a brand new concept that we're just hearing about. It's proven at this point.
This is where we're at in the automotive industry now. You're going to see more and more EVs coming. It's obvious with
it is a sports car. It is not a family car. It does not have a back seat.
Nope.
You are not buying this vehicle for family vacations. An electric is not out of the question based on the fact that it's a sports car and you want performance, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's kind of
similar
with Ford. Ford took a lot of heat with the Bronco that came out just recently for not offering a V8 in it.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've had that discussion. Why we think that it's not that important for that to have a V8. I think that they have on their platforms, their engine platforms, they have enough to get the job done with what that vehicle is meant to do.
What it's meant to do.
Likewise with this, you want to go fast.
Yeah.
You want to go fast. You want it to perform. You want it to handle. You want it to feel good. And if they're going to promote, like they did last night, that they want the driver and the vehicle to become partners in this thing, then, and if they're staying true to that, then that tells me that we're going to have a really, really nice piece of machinery here when it's all said and done. We certainly hope so.
Either that is absolute, the God's honest truth, or it's total marketing hype, and we're going to hold them to it one way or the other.
Yeah, and so we can only at this point speculate because there's no tech information
they really didn't.
out.
It was just
give us anything.
Yeah. So the other thing, and this is kind of the last thing on my official list, is this car notoriously has been a huge fan of the tuner crowd. And I feel like if they don't continue to cater to the aftermarket tuners in some way, they're going to lose interest. Now, that may be, a lot of these guys converted them to track stars or drift cars or just various, it was a very adaptable vehicle in kind of the sports car realm, what you wanted to do from a sports car perspective. I think that they still have to keep focus on that. If you produce something that, you're only able to buy parts from Nissan, I think you're jeopardizing a certain percentage of sales.
Oh, I agree. 100% agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. So,
if I can't put body kits on, I mean, I don't know that I would put a body kit on it, but you know what I'm saying. Like if it isn't in some way, shape, or form modifiable to a considerable extent.
Yeah. I think within the legal emission limitations, staying and you can do these things. It's capable. There's capable product out there to keep you still, legal, but to be able to tune it in a way that's going to get more out of it. You need to allow them to have that room to do that. I mean, just about.
If I can't put a spark arrestor on it and overjuice the injectors to get that nice pop going through neighborhoods, I'm not interested.
I think that you brought up something in our last podcast that we didn't bring up today that I do hope that they put on this thing, and that's launch control, man. I really.
Yes,
I
very,
think it's
very good callback. Yeah,
I need this
you
is
have
if this
to.
is
You're going to be competing with a Tesla Model 3.
Yeah, I mean there are vehicles high. Porsche's got them. There's certain BMWs. There are some high-end GM vehicles out there that have them, or sports cars that have them. So why not? Why wouldn't you put it in there, man? Yours did not, right?
No, and I had. The last generation, the 370, and I had about as high up of a production model in terms of the spec, the high end, that I could get on the Roadster convertible. So there was not a Nismo. Now I don't know if the Nismo had it. That's my point. But I had this. I had the Synchro Rev. I had the big Nismo brakes on it. I had everything that I could get on that vehicle that was the top of the line production, short of the Nismo. Now the Nismo did have a different engine in it,
right?
But yeah, we'll see. But you're right. They've got to have launch control.
They do, man. And again, you're going to have to put the money in the performance, man. And if you do that, I think the rest will come to you, man. I do. I think it will. I really do. I think this is their opportunity to get it right. If they don't, then...
Toyota to some extent was trying this with the 86, although that's a much lower cost. Well, we think. We don't know what it's going to, but... You need to go get can't afford a GTR crowd, but that they like the Japanese, they like the Asian sports cars.
Right.
All right, well, I don't have the money for a GTR, but, I'm a huge fan of, what, and the Toyota 86 is kind of too low end. Well, this is the sweet spot for you right here, as long as it delivers.
Is, man. Nissan has such a huge opportunity right here to get this thing right. So we're left with still kind of speculating and wondering what's going to happen. We do know that they have gone past an idea. They have gone past the drawing board. They are now into Proto, and I believe we're closer to a finished vehicle than we think. I hope. I sure hope Nissan gets this thing right. I hope they get it in production, if it's not already in production, so this thing can be out there on the lots and available to you to be ordered, which I suspect the 400, that will be a special order only. Maybe, maybe not. You might have one or two sitting on the lot somewhere, but get ready, folks. It's going to be exciting if they get this thing right. I can't wait.
Yeah.